Aloha, I'm Bethany Hamilton, and I am in studio with The Hollywood Reporter.
So, Bethany, why was this the time to have a documentary come out about your life? Because you have been in the public eye for such a long time, and you've had your books, you've had Soul Surfer. Why is now the time for the documentary?
Yeah, so the whole story behind Unstoppable, when we first started creating it, we had set out, the director and I had set out to make actually just a short film, like 12 minutes of me just action surfing. And as we started to create that project, we realized, I think the director in particular, Aaron Lieber, really wanted to just share my story beyond Soul Surfer, and I loved how Soul Surfer turned out, and that was such an amazing experience and way to share my story, and just hearing all the feedback from young kids, just that we could influence them in a beautiful way and remind them that when tough times come their way, they can overcome. But at the same time, I was like, there's so much more to my story that really hasn't been shared, and people haven't really seen the real me in a sense. So we just set out to start making it into an actual documentary, just telling more of my story. And yeah, everything kind of came together over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be difficult to have this kind of, I mean, you're kind of legendary in the surf scene or, beyond that, you're a symbol. So to get into a documentary, you're kind of going into what it's like to really be you, to really be human. Was it hard to kind of get past all of that? I mean, I know that in the documentary, you struggle as a teenager with your own fame.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I just try to block it out of my mind a lot of the time, just thinking about kind of sharing more of me. But then, I don't know, I'm often so driven too because I'm constantly greeted by people who have had their lives changed by hearing my story. And to me, that's really motivating in the sense of like, I'm doing more than just living my life. I'm sharing it and, helping others along the way. And I think so many young people are really facing more than we realize, and I'll see the surface of them with a quick hi and a photo, but I don't really know what's the deeper rooted kind of things going on in their life. But I know that them seeing my story can make a huge impact, and yeah, I'm excited to share more and do more.
And beyond the part of your career that's kind of being an inspiration to younger people or people who've been having adversity in their life, you're also a very disciplined athlete. So the documentary kind of gets into that. Tell me a little bit about what it was like being a pro athlete and having a baby.
Oh my gosh, yes. Entering motherhood was a whirlwind, and I definitely had a lot of doubt and fears come into my mind, and just moving forward. At one point I was like, let's just not do the documentary. I couldn't even talk about it without crying. I wasn't sure of the future, but I realized that, hey, I'm still going to be able to surf, and I don't know exactly how things will pan out, but let's just keep moving forward and see what happens. And motherhood was definitely the most beautiful gift I've ever received and been able to be a part of in my life. And yeah, I kept surfing too. And I've always been very driven ever since I was a young girl, just very go-getter attitude, and not the type to let little bumps in the road slow me down. But definitely having a kid was more than a little bump in the road, because your body is completely transformed and your focus is also spread out more. But I love my little guys. I'm a mother of 2 now, and they're just the joy of my life, and they keep me on the edge of my toes. They challenge my character, and they just yeah, just are such a joy.
So going back to being goal-oriented, I mean, it's an understatement to say you're goal-oriented because you have put a lot of milestones in your career. You could have just been a pro surfer, but you went farther because you wanted to surf bigger waves. You wanted to do aerials. You wanted to do all of the things that professional surfers do. So tell me a little bit about that path. Like, when did you decide that being a pro surfer wasn't enough? It was time to like start towing into Jaws.
Yeah, so throughout my film, Unstoppable kind of shows me carrying out some of my bigger goals that I've pretty much had since I was a young girl. A lot of my favorite surfers growing up were big wave chargers, Keala Kennelly. There were some local surfers like Andy Irons and a bunch of just like where I grew up is just like a pot of gold for talent and incredible surfers. And so I would see guys doing airs, and my 2 older brothers pushed me to surf big waves. So I constantly kind of was like lured to just push myself and like be the best I could be. And for me, that I wanted to do it all and like accomplish even more than I maybe thought I could. And so filming the documentary just kind of opened that opportunity to really focus and just do it. So,
and like hitting all the famous waves across the world, I would call that a bucket list, being that it's such a dangerous thing to do. It's a bucket list. So are there any other waves on your bucket list? Any other places you need to surf?
Well, I've been continuing to work on like doing aerials, which is progressive surfing and pushing yourself to just do like the hardest things in surfing. It's such a mind game. It's so challenging and it's a lot of fun. And there's some other great waves out there that I want to chase. And I'm definitely, just trying to find the balance too of just being mom and also other endeavors. I've been working on a program for young people to kind of overcome obstacles and live their unstoppable life on my website, and just kind of get more out there and helping people and like being more than just an inspiration, but equipping young people to like, hey, how are you going to overcome when those tough speed bumps or shark bites come your way?
Yeah. One of the things that the documentary talked about was the kind of how you were treated in the press. You're struggling to have a career as a pro surfer, but people are, calling you things like Shark Bite Girl in the press.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
It's hilarious. I just find the press so intriguing because it's almost like they're like these young teenagers that are like trying to get attention and they can't just like communicate in a proper form, but they have to like be extreme and ridiculous. So now, often, I'm able to laugh at it more now, but as a teenager, it was rough, and I think what helped, though, was just getting in the ocean and escaping it all, which is what I would do all the time, so, and I would often kind of just ignore it and, like, let ignorance be my bliss, so it wasn't too bad, but there was moments when I was like, oh my gosh, that's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And still have that today.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you have any desire to compete in big wave surfing?
I actually have thought a lot about that, and I don't. I just think big wave surfing takes a lot more than just an hour in the lineup, because I've put time in big waves in certain lineups, and you can sit for hours before you get a wave. And that's even putting full effort into getting waves. So, yeah, I think big wave riding is like so much more than a heat and a jersey. But at the same time, I'm like in so much admiration of all the women and men who are putting themselves in the jersey in a short time frame and really heavy surf, and it's so incredible to watch. And but at the same time, I'm like, I think it's more of a just a free surf sort of a thing, and all the best rides are usually free surfing. But actually, I don't know, there's been some crazy ones in competition too. So
a lot of surfers are studied scientifically because of their ability to handle stressful situations, or they have a different relationship with fear. Have you ever looked into that? Like, do you think that you were kind of born differently? Like, do you have like a different relationship with fear?
Yeah, I think definitely it's almost like training at a young age. Like, ever since I was young, I was like pushing myself to even, then, like, how tall was I? Like maybe 5'5". And at that point, I'm still surfing like waves triple over my head.
Yeah.
And just kind of like learning to kind of control your fear and breathe through it, or like relax through a crazy wipeout. And plus, a lot of just cross-training helps strengthen you mentally. So nowadays, too, surfers are putting a lot of time in off-water cross-training. And, like, I myself can hold my breath for 4 minutes, like, in a static hold. So I can kind of take a lot of, like, mental strength off that and be like, you know what? Like, hold downs are usually never more than 30 seconds. Like, that's a really long one. So you can kind of like know when you fall, you just have that sense of peace. And there's safety precaution too. When you are in really big surf, there's always usually safety crew with the jet ski there to rescue. And yeah, it's done a lot more thoughtful than kind of just, putting yourself out there in like drowning conditions.
I mean, do you think with the popularity of surfing, you've seen, especially in your own, where you grew up in Hawaii, have you seen a lot of people out there not equipped to handle the conditions?
Yeah, on occasion in the big surf, you'll kind of get someone that maybe they just don't realize where their capabilities and how big the waves are. But for the most part, we got amazing lifeguards. And I mean, if I see someone that I'm like, oh my gosh, they should not be there, if I see them, usually the waves will just do the job and send them back to the beach. But sometimes I'll say something if I feel like it's necessary, just to like keep them and everyone around them safe.
I ask everybody who has a documentary, if you could deliver this documentary to one person, who would you want to see this more than anything?
I would say like American youth. That's not one person, but yeah.
Why would you want the American youth to see it?
I think a lot of American youth are growing up with a lot of things handed to them, and they're lacking grit and kind of drive to be the best they can be and be able to overcome all the trials that life comes and throws our way. So hopefully to show them that hard work and determination can push them beyond.
You've been filmed a lot in your life, but what was it like to see this documentary put together and composed?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't love watching myself, but I thought it came together so beautifully, and it definitely shares my story in a way that it's very visually appealing, but also you could probably not even hear it and learn my story just by watching it. So to me, that's really beautiful in a sense of it's just very visually telling of the story. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it out there.
Yeah. And where can people see it?
Yeah, so it releases July 12th in theaters around the U.S. So support us, get out there, go to the theater, and tell your friends, because we're a small little documentary, and it's basically the director and I and a little mini team that put this all together. So we're going out for the big fishes, and so we're thankful for everyone to support us, and I think you guys will all love it.
Bethany, thank you so much. And it's important to say that even though the documentary ends, your life keeps going, and I'm really excited to see what you do next.
Aw, thank you.